Hey everybody, it's good to see you back. Shop Time with Dave here. Well, it's been, I don't know, month and a half since we had a video. Basically, what we've been doing is getting firewood ready and, yeah, just in general, getting ready for wintertime, dealing with family stuff. Most of you know I changed jobs, so I've been dealing with getting used to that, getting a new schedule figured out. But anyway, we're on to a new video. So, some of you are going to be a little dismayed about this. Some of you is going to be pretty excited. But let's jump into it and I'll tell you what's going on. So, we're going to have to pull off the Cletrac E62 Hercules OOC engine for a while. And we're going to jump back on the Case D. So the reason for that is, well, there's a couple really. One is it's going to be a while before the crank is ready over here for the OOC. And I was able to get us a motor kit for the Case D. And really, the Case D is kind of in the way anyway. It needs to get put together so we can at least roll it out of here to get the Cletrac E62 in here. There's just not enough room in here for both. So, I guess let's get to it. Let's see what we got. So, here's our motor for the Case D. And we're up on sawhorses for this rebuild. Because the motor stand is occupied by the OOC. Not buying another motor stand for one project. It's just not worth it to me, and I really don't have room to store all this stuff anyway. So the background on this is the motor was completely locked up when I started on it, and it was in really, really bad shape. If I had been able to break it loose and try to run it, it would have destroyed itself because everything was covered in this rust, grease, goo, grinding paste that would have just eaten anything and everything away. So I believe it was the right choice to go ahead and pull the motor down and clean it, put it back together. So what we started out doing was I was just gonna pull it apart, put new rings in it, and put it back together. But in the process of that, two pistons were damaged. Therefore, we needed to figure out what to do with them. At first, we looked at just finding replacements, and apparently the pistons I have are some kind of rare aftermarket that nobody's ever heard of, and we were never able to find replacements. So then we looked at having them welded up and turned back down, and I just finally decided, you know what, let's just go ahead and do this right. I knew that there was taper in these sleeves. I was going to let it go, but my heart wouldn't let me do it. I had to do it right. So here we are now with a halfway put back together motor that we're going to have to disassemble so we can put everything in it new. So let me show you over here what we got. So here's our motor kit. Went to Mr. Don Livingston, the Case expert, for my parts. So for almost $800, here's what we came home with. Sleeves, pistons, new wrist pins that I had no idea I was going to get, top chrome rings, compression rings, oil control rings, 4 times over. This ought to make for a really nice running engine. I don't think this needs to be record-breaking powerhouse. We just need it to run and look good. But I'm sure we're going to put it to work too. I'm sure it's going to end up on a plow somewhere someday. And maybe even a sawmill. It could happen. Well, with all that said, we need to get set up and start tearing down what I had put together. All right, let's get to it. I'll get you on the tripod. Let's get started by bringing this crank up to center. All right. I never did put safety wire in this because, well, we weren't done putting the motor together, and I anticipated probably having to take it apart for one reason or another. So let's start by popping these loose. All right, let's see if we can get these caps off of here. There we go. Now, we got shims under these bearing caps. We need to keep those shims together, the right thickness. I don't know. I'll see if I can bring this in. I don't know how well you can tell it, but these are babbited bearings. Try to do this without losing our shims. And this is coming apart way easier than I anticipated. Does that mean problems are going to come? I hope not. All right, I'm going to move that stuff off and try to lay it out somewhere nice and organized like. There, just to show you, I got number 4 and number 1. Everything's laid out organized so I can remember the order, because the thickness of these shim packs is real important. And I'll probably have to make more shims before this is over with. But we can do that. It's no big deal. So gently, let's see if we can move these pistons down. There we go. Do this without hurting our journals. Same thing on this back one. All right, we're free of the crank. Let's see if we can do this without taking the crank out of it, so we don't have to take all this back apart again. Because just like the rods, the mains have also been shimmed, and they've already been plastic gauged. They're ready to go. It's exactly where it needs to be. All right, can you guys see all right? Well, I guess if you can't, too bad, because that's as good as it's getting for you. So let's see if we can pull these pistons and rods out of here. See how much of a fool I look like. Try to halfway do this gently. See if we can tear up some pistons we're not going to use, or cylinder liners we're not going to use. Anyways, can you guys see this? Silco. Does anybody know anything about that company? I couldn't find anything with hours worth of Googling. Oh, here's a part number. I had thought possibly, with no results, that possibly Silco could be Silvolite, which made pistons, but I could not find any information to back that up. So your guess is as good as mine. I'm going to set this over here out of the way. What do you guys think we ought to do next, huh? I guess maybe it'll involve getting the sleeves out. I think they should come out pretty easy with just tapping on them with a little block of wood, because I put a lot of engine assembly lube on them and the O-ring when I put this together. And I think we'll be able to reuse the O-ring. Most of you will tell me that's wrong, but keep in mind those were new O-rings and they were $100 for the set. And here was the old O-rings I took out. They don't look round anymore. So they've only been in there maybe a year, maybe two. It can't be that long. So I guess we're ready to pull them sleeves out of there. Let's see what happens. I got an idea. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but it's an idea. How about it? I set this dead blow hammer up in here. Real gently like. See if I can pop these sleeves loose. One sleeve out, guys. That went amazingly easy. You can see a greasy engine or transmission assembly lube's what I used. See that on there. So you know where that O-ring sealed at. Yeah, they look pretty rough. I did hone them, but yeah, they're pretty rough. Probably would have run all right. But, we're moving on, right? Let's do this. Is anybody else like me? And every time your fingers get greasy, you got to wipe them off. Like instantly. Because you're not ready to touch something else yet. I don't think gloves would do any good because I'd just be changing gloves constantly. Like for every single piece I touch. That just doesn't seem efficient to me. Okay, we're back. I checked those O-rings real close with a flashlight. I think they look excellent. I don't think there's anything to worry about with them. Pulled out one of our new sleeves so we can look it over real good. Take a rag here. Can you see? Just gonna go around there, make sure there's no dirt. Could cause a problem. I've cleaned up this side already. And I got this assembly goo. It's actually for automatic transmissions, but I think it's going to work really good in this application. Nothing else. It's going to keep it from rusting. Should make it nice and slick. So we should be able to slide the sleeve right on into that O-ring. I can't set this block up right the way we need it to be because the crank's in the way. So we're just going to have to make do. Alright, let's see if we can slide this on in there. Now I've already cleaned in here. Look at that, like a glove. Alright, how about I get the others ready to put in? See if you can see in there. It's already got a really nice crosshatch pattern put into it, so we don't need to worry about that. So here goes number 2. And I did clean out these recesses in here, or counter bores. Well, before we can move on any further, we got to get the rods out of the old pistons. So we got to start with Squash 253's favorite job, and that is fold over locks. So I pulled out my favorite welder's chisel. Let's see if we can bend that lock down a little bit. Yeah, there we go. It's opening up. Well, I doubt this idea works, but maybe we can use this little impact to run that out. Probably won't work. Probably won't break it loose. Of course it doesn't work. Battery's almost dead. Next idea. Let's see if old trusty Rusty can get it done. Probably not. And no. And we're going to have to find a way to hold this down, get a little more torque on it. Time to get real serious, I guess. That did it. There's our bolt. Fine thread. Now, I'm sure we're going to have to drive the wrist pin out of it. All right, I got an idea to try. Let's just see if this will get it to move. Just going to take this extension, trusty hammer, just kind of tap on it and see if it moves. It's moved a little bit. Now we need to set this up on something and let it get caught somehow. Maybe this will work. It's moving. So we're just about ready for some reassembly. I wanted to talk about something for a second, and that is I like to take my manuals and make copies of the pages. I can bring them out here. I can highlight specific things, write notes down if I need to, or just in general. I don't care if I get them all greasy and dirty. I can throw them away later, and we're not hurting the original manual, so it stays in the house in good shape. So let's see here. So our next step is going to be to get our new pistons and our new wrist pins and assemble those. And I've looked down here at a note, and it doesn't give me anywhere a torque spec for the clamping bolt of the wrist pin. Let's try to do some reassembly, guys. I've looked all over this piston, and I do not see anything showing which direction is the front. So I guess it can go either direction. On these old pistons, you can see it right there. It says front. So let's give this a try and see what happens. Got some oil in here. Lube up everything. And you guys write your own jokes. Who, besides me, thinks this is going to be a challenge to line this slot up with the bolt? You guys still in frame there? This is definitely going to be a challenge. Not only is it a tight fit, it's slimy and slick. See if we can get a little oil in there too. Yeah. Get our fold over lock. Set it on there. Our clamping bolt, which I took over to the wire wheel and cleaned the threads. See if it just will thread in there. Well, I ended up taking it back apart and sliding it back together and checking it out, and it finally went. A little bit of an unplanned struggle. So we're ready to tighten it down. And what the book recommends is just putting something through here to keep it from turning. And as I said before, we don't have a specification on how tight this is supposed to be. So I guess we'll just go for as tight as we can get it without breaking something. Now we're lined up with one of the folds, so we can fold that up. All right, let's do this. I do not believe that bolt is going to turn. So the next thing we need to do is get some rings over here and put them on. Let's see if we can put these rings in, boys. So the first thing I want to do is get some oil on these ring grooves. Don't be afraid to use plenty of oil. Try to get her spread around in there. Our center section needs to go in first. It's got some little tabs that are going to space the ring out. So let's get that guy in there. This gives us a chance to get this all coated in oil real nice. What we're going to try to do is make sure all of our ring gaps are nice and spread out. Here, it's moving around nice and free on there. Got one ring gap down here. One over here. This is just the oil scraper ring anyway. I don't know how well it's going to show up. Right here it says top. It's probably too much glare, so you won't be able to see it. Let's get some oil on this guy. That should expand it out with our little ring expander. I'm looking this ring over real close. I do not see anything that indicates top or bottom. I don't see any angles anywhere that would indicate anything. So I guess this one can go either direction. There, and put that one up there. We got rings in one. Amazing. Just like before, more oil. Lather that up good. I think we actually have one ready to put in an engine. So now we can put our ring compressor on. Make sure it's clean. Our little tool here. I think we got it. Now we can put one in. So we'll get the camera reset. So we need to take note of this. Connecting rods and caps are numbered. The numbered side of the rod and cap are on the side away from the camshaft. Rods are numbered from 1 to 4, number 1 being at the front of the engine. So knowing that, we know which direction that we need to put our rods in. You know how I like oiling stuff. Let's see if I can get plenty in here. All right, we're ready. Here's our number. So we know that since the cam is on this side of the block, our number needs to go down. I'll try to do this without scraping a cylinder. I'll take the rubber end of this hammer handle. There we go. We got one in. That gets you a good view. I'll make sure this is clean. Actually, let's not oil this, because what we need to do is check our bearing clearance. Even though I know we're already right, but because this has been together, I want to show y'all how it is. Alright, so that's in place. Let me go ahead and get set up and we'll check the bearing clearance. Alright, so on here it says clearance is 1.5 to 3 thousandths. To check that, we use this plastic gauge. We've got millimeters on this side, and imperial on this side. So I'll get a little piece and we'll stick it on there and see where we're at. Alright, I've gone ahead and put our bolts and our shims in. Here's our cap with our little piece of plastic gauge. Here's our number. We know the number is going to go to the downside. There are nuts on here. So we're going to want to torque those to our spec. We've got that right here. 70 foot-pounds. So I'll get the wrench set up and we can torque those down. Alright, I don't know how well this is going to come out, but I got the first time we're set at 20, so we can just bring these up slow. Slow and even. At 3/4, but I want to throw this out there to you. If you ever can't find your 3/4, grab your 19 millimeter. It's only 2 thousandths different. It'll slide right on there. 1 and 2. Now let's bump it up to 40. Heard our click. Let's go up to 60. And finally, 70. Y'all heard the click. Now we can pop that loose. Looks like we're right at the 3/1000ths. So that was between 2 and 3, so we'll call it 2.5. And that gives us in that range of 1.5 to 3. So I don't see why that could be any problem at all. I ain't building a NASCAR motor here. I just want a tractor to run. There. Move that out of the way. Grab our oil and lather this up real nice. See if we can pull this back into position without losing any shims. Like we said before, our number 1 needs to go to the bottom, away from the cam. Set our wrench back to 20. Start the process over. Hear that click? Last click. We're good to go on that. Now let's test it. I made up this little terrible looking welded thing of an adapter. Feels pretty good, guys. Now we can do the others. Well, off camera, I went ahead and got the other pistons and rods ready to go. We got 2, 3, and 4. And you can see right here, if it focuses, 2, 3, and 4. So let's see if we can get set up and put these in. I don't know, this stuff ever happened to you, or is it just me? Maybe everybody else just cuts it out in their videos. Well, take a look at that. Well, I think what we'll do is go ahead and rotate this up now that they're all in. And once it's up, let's go ahead and do all these bearings. Well, it doesn't look like I have enough of these shims, but I got plenty of brass 2/1000 thick shim material. So I thought I'd show you how I'm going to make one. Relatively easy. I've got an aluminum block here as my backer. And I got a punch. I'm just going to set this right in here. Smack it real good with the hammer. That gives us our hole. Then I'm just going to take a pair of scissors. Cut it off. And we'll leave it like that for now. And then later on, we'll trim it in the machine. Alrighty, everybody. I went ahead and skipped to number 4 since we already had the shims ready to go for that one. I did go back in with the plastic gauge and double check it, and it was right on the money. So here we go. Let's put her back together. Alright, I wanted to show you a couple things here. We got this one set. Took a couple tries. It ended up being 7 shims, 7 2/1000 shims on each side. I started out with 8 and worked my way down. We ended up with right at 3/1000. It's in spec. If I'd have taken another layer out, that would put us 1 and we'd have been under. But I wanted to show you we're getting some oil put in here. Smear that around. Lots and lots of oil. Alright, we got our number 2 right there to line up with our number 2 here. Get a nut started on it so it doesn't fall out. Ask me how I know. Alright, that's all of them. But I want to go ahead and real quick double check just to make sure. See what I mean? How'd we miss that? Well, I know why we missed it. Because I was setting it up for a shot I didn't do. One more time, just for the naysayers. Bob's your uncle, as they would say. Wanted to show you something else right here. Main bearing requires 150 foot-pounds to tighten. So I've gone ahead and set the wrench to 150, and we'll try to get as close as we can to it. I think it's already there, but it's been a long time, so we'll double check. I think we're there. Alright, I told you that I would show you what I was going to do to trim these up. I'm just going to grab a knife and go around them, but of course, all my good sharp blades are at the other shop. But basically, just go around like this. And peel it away. I guess you all need the money shot, right? Well, by now you notice that I didn't put any safety wire or cotter pins in. And I didn't do that intentionally for the time being, just in case I got to pull it back apart again. But I wanted to mention that because I know somebody will say something about it. Wanted to go over this real quick with you. Make certain that the tooth on the crankshaft gear showing one punch mark is between the two teeth having punch marks on the camshaft gear. We're back in handheld here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's our single punch mark on the crank, and here and here. Oop, fingers in the way. On the cam gear. I tried to put a little paint on there to help see it a little easier. And then we have another punch mark down here. And that'll be for timing the governor. And there you have it. We got a rotating assembly. Well, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. I need to get back in there and get this put together for you. And man, I must have been hard at it. My hair looks terrible. Anyways, so there we are. One step closer on the Case D. And for anyone wondering, especially if Squash 253, if you're watching, I very seriously considered using beer can shims, but I knew you'd call me out on it, so I couldn't do it. Other than that, I think we're ready to wrap this episode up, and we'll be ready for another one. Thanks for watching Shop Time with Dave.